Alright, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Fruits Basket, Season 2, Episode 12.
Alright.
Let's get into some more emotional punishment. Last episode with Kagura was very sweet.
Last episode was
also, a bit of a tearjerker.
Really good. It had a lot of eye-opening things to it, and a lot of things that were just kind of casually confirmed.
Yep.
As they kind of moved forward with a lot of this Kyo development that we've been really focusing on a lot this season. Given that Yuki was kind of the beginning of this season.
Yeah.
Kyo seems to be the next stage of it. Hopefully Toru is probably the next stage after that.
Right.
But yeah, learning a little bit more even about why Kyo not just is the way he is, but the fact that there was another side to him that still somehow existed and survived all the way up until the point where he was getting blamed for the murder.
Yeah.
Murder.
Yeah.
Of his mom.
But personally, I would love to have a lighthearted episode. We've had a lot of heavy ones recently, and while I love the heavy ones, they're a lot.
They are a lot.
So if we could get something that's like just floofy wholesomeness, maybe a side of antics, some Uo and Hana, like I would not be against that.
We are heading back from the beach house, so
we can get more school stuff.
So we get more school stuff. That makes a lot of sense to do. I also feel like a lot of the stuff that what they've been doing with the Soma family seems to be poking at the idea of the group of them and where they're kind of generally seeming to put their roots or their emotional connections and relationships, and they could focus a little bit on that. Now that this beach arc is over, and what things might have changed even more for the better and away from Akito's general direction of control. So, I mean, there's a couple of things, and this is still the middle of the season. So
right, and we could even get Rin focus if the show wanted to give us that. Since she's kind of kept a distance so far,
and it's been a nice little drip feed here and there as we learn little bits and pieces. But y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. Alright everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh, a nice little 1-2. We got ourselves a single character focused backstory type episode in the previous one, and now we're getting a single character focused kinda
with some backstory.
With a little bit of backstory, but mostly just hey, the adults in this story, outside of Ayame, because that man-child is barely mature. But
No. I'm convinced that he will still get an episode of dedicated focus with him and his assistant. And it will be sweet and wonderful and wholesome.
It'll be wonderful, yes.
It'll be everything we could have dreamed.
For now, let's combine Hatori, Shigure, and Mayuko, and let's have ourselves a little bit of a mature take on some kind of complicated relationship dynamics, and then the idea of acceptance and moving on. Right,
and there are a few reasons why I really love this one, just because it's focused on the adult characters in Fruits Basket.
And they're all pretty good.
Yeah. So it's something that I appreciate, in general, in just storytelling and anime and things like that. I wish there was more of that in anime.
Sure.
Fruits Basket has some great adult characters, so seeing them more, awesome.
Yeah.
But two, the situation of Hatori's backstory and Kana and that whole situation, that was a lot, right? And you don't just forget about something like that, right?
Nicely said. Well said.
That's a very big reason for why Hatori is the person that he is today. But also anyone that had been close to Kana, that would have an effect on them, right? And given that Mayuko was actually kept kind of in the loop about things, she knows at least a little bit of the Soma secret.
Sure.
Right? Even if she doesn't know they transform into animals, she knows that one of them can suppress memories. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay.
Yeah. And she's probably got her own explanation for it in her head because they didn't necessarily show her any of that. They just know they did it. And it's just, okay, yeah, sure. Okay. All right. But the idea that all these characters are young adults. They're not 40 or something like that.
Right.
They're in their 20s or early 30s at most.
So in anime terms, that basically means they have everything figured out.
No, but I think
I'm kidding.
I know, but I think that this is an important thing, is that this show brings up the idea that no,
they don't.
Just
they really
because
don't.
you happen to be 26 or 29 or what have you, doesn't mean you have everything figured out. And not
Nope.
only that, you could be more emotionally immature than someone that's 14 or 15.
Yep,
The idea
that could totally happen.
The idea that Mayuko hasn't moved on, even though it's only been 2 years, that's not a lot of time.
Yeah, like 2 years, it might be at that point where you might be expecting, like, okay, is this the time where the person will start to be able to, move on from something like that?
Yeah,
but at the same time, that's the kind of stuff that takes a long time.
Exactly. There's a difference between moving on and accepting things. And this is the point that I think is really cool that the show brings up, is the idea that just because Hatori has moved on in some level, he has not necessarily fully accepted this.
Right, and even the stuff that Shigure was saying about how Hatori had moved on wasn't even true. He didn't actually have a girlfriend,
Nope.
right? Now, while it's possible that he has moved on in some way, given
Yes.
the way that he carries himself and the fact that he's like, no, happiness isn't something for me, right?
Yeah, he's moved on in that he's adjusted his focus so that he can then try to come to a term of acceptance with this.
Right, but he very much has not.
But he very much has not, because of his lack of ability to express himself emotionally in this case.
Yep.
And what I think is really cool about this story is that most of the characters have some kind of issue that gives them a bit of a unique emotional expression that shows their dysfunction,
Sure.
or in some ways just whatever their issue is that they're
Right.
dealing with. And in this case, we have two characters, Hatori and Mayuko, who both very much are incapable of showing their true emotions because they're still, in some ways, unable to accept kind of what happened.
In some ways, that might make you perfect for each other, and not just perfect for each other from the standpoint of being able to understand each other, but also maybe be able to help each other out through this process.
Right.
Because while it doesn't have to be something where, like, you don't have to talk about it too much, right?
Yeah.
It is something that happened 2 years ago, and if you don't want to, that's fine,
And
right?
you still need to build a relationship independent of that event.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, given that Hatori doesn't seem to be in a good way right now, given that you, Mayuko, haven't been in a good way, and almost it seemed like, you were able to do better because you saw that he also wasn't in a good way, and that basically
Confirms your love for him.
confirms your love for him, and then as a result of that, it helped you summon up reserves of fortitude and strength that you didn't realize you maybe had.
Yeah. And Shigure, right in the middle of this playing matchmaker, is wonderful because we know how much he loves and cares about Hatori.
Yes.
So this is something where he's absolutely looking out for his best friend. Mm-hmm. But also the idea that he's like, well, I mean, I dated her for a little bit. I know what kind of person she is. I'm going to go and double check to see if
she's doing.
Yep, 100%. She still likes him. She's still interested in this.
on.
She has not been able to move on.
Yep.
Wait a minute. I could give them a push.
Yeah.
I could make something happen.
And also-
I'll see what I can do. Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Shigure also write romance novels? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my man Shigure
He's a professional shipper.
Yeah, is one of those guys who knows exactly what he's doing, and he kind of doesn't care that sometimes he's pushing things.
Oh, are you going to thank me? Oh, no, you weren't even thinking about thanking me. Oh, okay.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, that's what he said. You don't need to thank me.
Oh, right. Yeah, you don't need to thank me. And then it's, oh, you weren't planning to? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Of course not. Of course not. What I love about this also is that Hatori, being one of those characters that could be very much I'm just emotionally reserved, I don't really express myself.
Yep.
He's actually quite forthcoming and honest when it comes to talking about his feelings and the way in which he kind of revealed to her that, no, happiness isn't something that I feel like I can have. And the way he said that in such a matter-of-fact, simple terms means that he wasn't doing it out of some, like, begging for sympathy, or even in some ways a way of just being like, woe is me. He's just like, no, this is my this is my status right now.
Yeah, his emotions are something that are very he doesn't deal with them a lot, not because he's actively trying to avoid dealing with them, but because it's just he's kind of resolved them, right?
Yeah.
In that,
I think that's
I don't get happiness, so there you go, right? It's not. There's not much point like mulling it over or anything. But when someone actually like brings up the topic to him,
right,
he's very upfront about it, right?
Yeah, very upfront.
It's just this is the situation, right?
Yeah.
And then, oh hey, they don't seem to like that. No. They have this big emotional outburst because they care about you, and then that then suddenly that wakes his emotions up a little bit. Yeah.
I loved the way in which he brought up the idea of, as you grow older, you start to have more issues with fully expressing yourself, not just
a raw emotional outburst.
Yeah, with regards to like, just emotion, but like, or just general emotion stuff, but specifically crying. And I think this is something that I feel like it's a thing that he would understand from the health perspective, actually.
Oh, sure.
Is that even though he's not this kind of doctor necessarily,
right?
The idea that the kid at the Soma estate, one of the things that we immediately assumed was that it had something to do with Akito. There's nothing necessarily that it had to do with Akito.
Nope.
Could just be a kid that skinned his elbow, He's
right,
crying to his mom. But the idea is that crying was a signal that the mother basically needed to step in and just check in with him, be like, how are you doing? Are you okay? What happened? Can I help you?
Right.
And Hatori, you're not doing well.
Nope.
Like, Shigure did this because you weren't asking for help.
Exactly. Because, well, maybe the people in the Soma family listen to that old, sorry, pardon my French, bitch.
Yep.
That is like, oh, yeah, crying out loud. Oh, how shameful.
Yeah, but you should think about Akito's feelings because he's been miserable.
Yes.
He's been having the worst time.
The hypocrisy was so... beautifully shown.
In some ways now, I'm actually really curious what kind of knowledge and or influence the relationship between non-Zodiac Soma family members is in Akito, because I could see it being a thing where Akito is seen as an invalid in the, the innermost, sanctum of the Soma estate. And everyone else is like, oh, this child is traumatized, has gone through all this stuff, but they don't know any of the details of what he's doing because it's all kept very insular within the Zodiac portion.
Sure.
And thus this lady literally has no idea other than whatever Akito manipulates through either his influence or just...
And if there is, maybe because he has a higher status within the family and also, potentially is seen as an invalid or something like that, right? It's the, don't talk about, stuff like that, right? Like, why are you spreading these rumors?
Akito is a victim.
Right, exactly.
I can see it being very simple.
Just deal with it, right?
But I don't want to assume necessarily that she's automatically awful because the one thing I would say is that she's definitely of the like, so shameful, crying so loudly. It's like, okay, yeah, you shut up, bitch, But then from the other side of it, I don't. You
should always be by Akito's side,
Well, right, but that's the thing. I don't know why she necessarily thinks that, other than the idea that Hatori is is a medical professional.
Yeah, but at the same time, the stuff that she was talking about for the most part with Akito was his feelings, not actually his physical state. Yeah. So, that emotional state is shameful. You need to worry about this person's emotional state. That is not being communicated necessarily, but I'm going to tell you that you should be in tune with it. Yeah.
Well, that's again some of the things where I want to know a little bit more about whether or not people outside of the Zodiacs have any kind of like if Akito has any kind of dominion or control over them.
That is something I was wondering about. Yeah,
because there's a very real possibility that there's people that are just in his proximity enough where they just end up under his sway or under his control.
Because in some of the previous episodes they mentioned that Akito's words are more than just words when it comes to the actual Zodiac members because he is their god, right? He has dominion over them, right?
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That's very clear.
Right, but when it comes to other people, is it just that Akito's really good with his words in general, so he's still able to twist them to his bidding?
I think that's definitely the case.
I think that's still the case, but like that was something where when it showed Kaya, in the past, and she's so utterly blaming herself when she saw with her own eyes
Wait, you're talking Kana?
Kana, sorry.
Sorry, I thought
Got it mixed up.
No worries, no worries. Yeah.
When Kana is completely blaming herself for what happened, when Akito is the one that said it was her fault, directly after he started beating up Hatori and did the actual physical act of blinding his one eye, right? And yet she believes that it is actually her fault. I feel like you would be, even though words can definitely be twisted, and you can do all kinds of horrible things to a person with them.
Absolutely.
I
you
feel
don't need
like
powers to do that.
Right. I feel like it's still something though, where when you have one, the person is younger than you, right? Two, they are the one who just did the abuse right in front of you, and then directly afterwards say that it's your fault. I feel like as an adult, that'd be a bit easier to be like, what the fuck is this person's problem? Now,
well, I mean, okay, hold on. Before we unravel that whole thing, I was just wanted to bring up the idea that the grandma specifically might be under his influence on some level here. Thus, her view of Akito is absolutely skewed. And this was just a reminder to Hatori that you can basically end up in a situation where you're incapable of expressing your true emotions because you're in some kind of a hostile environment, and thus you need some help with that. And he resonates with that, and like that child, wanted to just get away from the situation. So he wanted to run away, and then run away, but you go over to her there. But yeah, Kana seeing her on the other side of this,
right?
She definitely felt like she was absolutely traumatized by this,
right? And I completely understand her being traumatized, and especially if she was being kept in in an environment where she was kind of locked into a little bubble where the only sounds echoing around essentially were Akito's words, for instance,
and Hatori
right?
letting Akito do this. That I think is the other thing we're not really talking about as much, is that it's not necessarily, I think, that she might be under Akito's control, because I really think this is a smart limitation that the show is bringing up already, that the words that he speaks extend in a special kind of power over the Zodiacs, but not necessarily anybody else. That's why Toru is so potentially important. But the idea that in that moment, Hatori didn't protect himself, he let it happen, but then he also didn't contradict what Akito was saying in the presence of Akito.
So it could totally be something where, like, also potentially Hatori maybe fills her in on what the situation is after. He's our god, this whole thing, whatever. And then she basically says, "Oh shit,
I
guess
think he would ever do that."
Well, sure, okay, maybe he wouldn't, but that would be another way where she could also end up believing that it's her fault, because it's the, oh shit, I kicked the hornet's nest when they are not able to do anything to stop him, so now it is kind of my fault, right? Like I could see that potentially being a way in which she.
Yeah, I think I understand what your kind of process is with here. I just feel like you're trying too hard to make it seem like she had to logically come to this conclusion, and that's not important. Like I don't think that's really important. The idea is that she was so emotionally traumatized by this whole thing that she believed it in that moment. But if to say that she in that moment was thinking logically is completely nonsensical. So it doesn't really matter whether or not she thought about it through some kind of step-by-step process.
Right.
At that moment, she was in such a bad way. Her friend saw it, Mayuko saw it, that she was then happy that they removed or suppressed
her memory.
Yeah. We're going to have to revisit actually what exactly Hatori can do, because it's been a while since his powers, if you will, have been brought up.
Yeah, it doesn't come up very often.
It doesn't come up very often, so I have to go back and check that, because I don't think, based on the way that they're saying it here, that he has the power to actually remove memories, that he's actually just finding some way to be like, and that's going into a box.
Right.
That's going to stay in that box.
Yep.
You don't have to think about what's in the box. You can move on with your life.
But I will say, if you're actually going to have the distinction made that it's suppression, not erasing,
that means something can come back.
And given that it's being specified that way, storytelling conventions, I would say there's a very high likelihood of, at some point, not necessarily
hers,
with Kana,
but someone else's.
But with someone, the memory's coming back.
Yep.
So...
I think we're on the same page of where that can be utilized for great effect later. But okay, Mayuko, you're gonna get some happiness here.
Yeah,
the story spoiled us by just being like, yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, sure. I loved the little detail of her cutting her hair. Now,
there's a couple aspects to that.
Yeah, I'm not going to raid too deep into that. I don't really want to. I think what's sweet about this is that it's something that shows there is a future which ends up with them together. But the reasons as to why she cuts her hair being either the change in direction, future, what have you, the connection to Kana, all that stuff. Just the idea that we didn't see their faces, but I can imagine the biggest and derpiest of smiles on them.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And she's okay with this. She's moved on.
Yeah, and that's that was maybe the one thing that I wanted to kind of bring up for it is that hair cutting in anime is a bit of a trope that I like to see it be used, right?
Yeah.
But I've never see it be used in something like this where it's the no. It's actually when the person is finally able to find that love that they were after the whole time, right? Not when the love is lost or something like that. Because usually
change who they are.
Yeah. Because usually, like when I see it, it's because of that desire for like a change of who they are, right? And most of the time, it's sort of like the future is going to be better. It's going to be different, or something along those lines. But given how much she was shown to be basically frozen in time,
sure,
I feel like it takes on a bit of a new meaning, and I really like that.
Okay, yeah,
but,
yeah. All right, yeah. I mean,
sweet episode.
This is a really sweet episode, all things considered, and I liked that Shigure, was found out rather aptly by the end.
Because of course. He didn't actually have a girlfriend.
Yep. You little shipper. You little devious little bitch. You were doing so much behind the scenes. And yet I love the idea that he's found out and he's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's just the way it is. Yeah.
And I love that Shigure is a character that, even though, now that I think about it, we haven't gotten actually that much focus on Shigure in this show. I don't know if we've ever gotten a Shigure focused episode.
Well, no, I think that's the thing. You can very easily tell that Shigure is being saved in the wings of the story, being like, we'll bring up Shigure backstory,
and
when
probably
we do,
I'm
holy
guessing
shit, it's gonna be good.
I'm guessing some kind of tragic backstory stuff where Akito did something, and that's why he's in particular, Yeah, exactly, and that's why he's especially wanting to get back at him, but that. We know him so well that we can tell what he's up to. We can see it coming. It's I'm like Hatori doesn't actually have a girlfriend, does he?
What are you doing? You little shit.
You clever little, it makes me think of the Hellsing Ultimate Abridged line of the, you cheeky little dick waffle.
Yes. But I love the detail, though, of this being centered around a little bookstore as well, so you understand why Shigure's there, but also the idea that Hatori was kind of pushed there almost a little bit, but being like, oh yeah, I've got a book that I'm ordering for you at this place.
Right.
So at least I'm going to give her 2 shots at this. 1, because you're going to go there at the wrong time. And then 2, you're going to come there at the right time.
Exactly.
And
the thing is that from Hatori's perspective, I could totally see it being something where it's like, you know what? This isn't the weirdest shit that I see from our trio of friends. Yeah. Because on the one hand, you've got Shigure, who probably does crazier shit than this. And then you've got Ayase as, the
Ayame?
Ayame, damn it!
No, it's okay.
There's a lot of character names in this show.
Okay.
But, and so, it's like, antics like this, probably pretty common, He probably just learns to just go with it, see what happens.
Yeah. But, and then maybe these two can now build some memories together.
Yep.
But all right, our adults are finding some happiness, so now it's time to see what our high schoolers, what our young ones can find.
That's right.
And stuff. So y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all of this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.